What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar with C-Zar Gets Crypto, and we are talking about Bitcoin today. We're going to go over the RSI and the overbought zone and how long Bitcoin has been in the overbought zone. I've actually gone through and measured already. We've been in the overbought zone this week, right? You can see it was this week it was overbought. This week here it was actually not overbought. Yes, there is space in between the line, but the way that this moves is like this is a week here, this is a week here. I can't go in between. So it was this week that we were in the overbought zone. We've been overbought now for 10 weeks. I'm not going to measure this because it's small. I'm not going to measure this because it's small. But here, overbought, we got out of the overbought zone on the 18th week. Here, overbought, got out of the overbought zone on the 10th week. Overbought, out of the, or we were still overbought, I think, on the 10th. No, we were coming out of it on the 10th week there. 6 weeks there, 8 weeks here, we were still in it actually, so we were on the 9th week, we got out of it. 18 weeks here, on the 18th week, we were, let me see, yes, the 18th week we were out of it. So the longest that we've seen, and I've gone through, already done this, right, these are smaller, but 10 weeks, 11 weeks, we've had two instances where we were overbought from beginning to end for about 18 weeks, okay? And the first time that we were overbought for 18 weeks, this is what the price looked like, right? Let's just see how it did. So it did very well, very, very well. A little stagnant at first, the first like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, and then up. This also happened on the first week of December in 2012. The very first halving that we ever had for Bitcoin was in November. It was like November 28th, I think, of 2012, not 2012, 2012. So this was a post-halving stint where we were overbought for 18 weeks. The next time that we were overbought for 18 weeks, which is all the way over here, the beginning of this stint was in October of 2020. We had the halving, the last halving, in May of 2020, okay? Another post-halving example of when we've seen this extended amount of time in the overbought zone, okay, which is really good. It's actually really encouraging for what's to come after the halving. And October is a little bit further away from May. The first example was literally like the week after that we started that, so anything can happen. But right now we are definitely pre-halving. We're absolutely pre-halving. We still have essentially 4 months to go until the halving. Let's look that up actually. I was looking up, does the SEC work on weekends? Because I was just curious. I didn't think they did because it's a government thing, but Bitcoin halving countdown, yeah. What do we got? We got 107 days, estimated end of April. So it'll probably happen a little bit earlier than that. Just generally speaking, how things go. But in April is what we're thinking, okay? So 107 days, 108 days left, essentially. I know that was bright. I've got the dark screen most of the time. This white screen is blinding to some people. It's blinding to me, but looking at it here, guys, I don't think that we're in one of those stints right now where we're going to be in this for 18 weeks. Okay, look at how the price acted here. It was also after the halving, right? Look at how the price action acted here. It's not the same, right? It's definitely not the same what we've been doing. We had an initial little move like that, but we've been crawling, and really we've been moving sideways since December now. So I do think, looking at other examples, 10 weeks, 6 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, or no, 10 weeks here, 11 weeks, we are in that kind of average, that expected range. We're in the amount of time that I think it's suitable for us to come out of the overbought zone. Okay, and what would that mean? We're overbought for a little bit, and we come out of the overbought zone. What would that mean? Well, that means we're going to go down. We're probably going to go down. How far are we going to go down? Is the question to ask. From the relative high, or relative low to the relative high, a minimum expected target I think would be $36,355. And I do think, regardless of if the ETF gets approved or gets denied, we're going to see that. I do personally believe the ETFs are going to get denied. I said the ETF, but it's actually the ETFs. It's plural, ETFs. I do personally think they're going to get denied. But even if they get approved, we're still going to see some negative price action because there's that old saying, buy the hype, sell the news. It is a 90+% likelihood with these buy the hype, sell the news events that you're gonna go down. There's a reason it's a saying, and the reason for that really is it's all about human psychology. Before the event happens, and this can apply to a lot of things in people's lives, man. Personal events, personal things. You might go on a date. You might go out to see a movie. You might think that like all these high expectations of things that are going to happen, and they do happen. And then afterwards, you're like, that wasn't as good as I thought it would be. Like it's just kind of human nature. Like we build things up in our mind, and then when it actually happens, you're like, yeah. Like, what was the big deal about that, Like it, and some examples are coming to my mind right now, but I'm not going to say them. But just talking about the ETF specifically, we're expecting the expectation, the news, the hype that's going on to this is that ETFs get approved, the floodgates are open for the big banks, the big money to come in. But what's going to happen is big banks, the institutional money, you guys, they don't put all their money in at once. They put it in over time. So the ETFs getting approved might be good for the long term. I think we're going to hit multiple millions of dollars in Bitcoin, hundreds of millions of dollars over time, with or without institutional money. We don't need institutional money. They need Bitcoin. But the news spins it to make people think that we need them. We don't need institutional money, you guys. Look at how far we've gotten without institutional money. And they've had their hands in Bitcoin for a while. But that's a whole other conversation. What I'm trying to say is, the ETF gets approved, ETFs get approved, and then the hype is gone. Right? It's nowhere to be found. All this money that is supposed to come in, it's not going to come in all at once. And when that's realized, when people are like, oh, wait, like this isn't, it was exciting before it actually happened, but now that it's happened, it's kind of like, well, what now, Well, with that kind of uncertainty, we generally go down, and that's why there's that buy the hype, sell the news. The news often underperforms the expectation. There are times where you buy the hype, you sell the news, and prices do go up, but it's not common. It's very not common at all. In my experience, trading, investing, doing all this stuff, man, it maybe 1 or 2 times has that happened, and then after the news gets released, it goes up a little bit, and then it still drops. Like it's like a delayed sell the news event. But what I'm trying to say here, guys, is I don't think the ETFs are going to get approved. I do think they're going to get denied. But either way, we're going to see some price movement down. Obviously, if the ETFs get denied, and I say if because nobody knows the future, everybody's acting like they're already approved, and that's why I think all this hype is here, man. But they're not approved. The fact that people think 90%, it's a 90% likelihood to get approved, makes me think it's a 90% likelihood that it's going to get denied. But tomato, tomato, whatever. Because either way, we're still probably going to go down. I just think if we get approved, we're going to see some more sustained downside for a longer amount of time, where if we get denied, I think the downside is going to be shorter lived. And I know that might sound a little bit weird, but the reason why I think it'll be shorter lived is because obviously ETFs get denied. That would be a negative kind of connotation. That would scare some people, all these people who are hyped on it, who bought just because of this news. They're going to sell because they're worried of what that could mean for the price. And I bet the price does go down on that news, maybe even a little bit after that news, but it'll be very short-lived because we're going to realize, again, what I was saying earlier is that we don't need the ETFs, you guys. We don't need it. We really don't need it. We're going to be okay. This has happened before, where we've had a 90% likelihood that the ETFs are going to get approved, and then they get denied, they get pushed back, they get whatever. And when I say this has happened before, I don't mean this year. I don't mean 2023. I mean 2018, and 2019, 2020. This isn't the first time that we've had a high chance that the ETFs are going to get approved. Okay, this is the most certain that everybody has seemed across the space, right? It seems like every YouTuber out there just blindly believes that I had someone comment the other day, they were saying all signs point to the ETFs getting approved. I'm like, what signs? The media sources? Like the same things that everybody's reading, so everybody just agrees? Like this person said this, I think that's going to happen. We're all saying the same. It's like a bird box. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody, but this is how herd mentality works, you guys. There's no reason to believe that the ETFs are going to get approved other than every other person out there is saying the ETFs are going to get approved. Like, you know what I mean? That's not there's no evidence there. There's no evidence. I do think the SEC is taking this more seriously. I do. Yes, the SEC has scrutiny, but there's all signs pointing to the ETFs get approved. I think you're lying to yourself, man. It's all people are telling us that the ETFs are going to get approved, and that's exactly why I don't think they're going to get approved. Because most of the time, markets are made to take most of the money from most people most of the time. It's a mind game. Buy the hype, sell the news. Whether it gets approved or it gets denied, I do expect downside. I do think it's going to get denied. But where was I going, man? I got a little bit lost there. The price, where it's likely going to go, based off of this relative low to high, would at least be down around $36,000. That's the 382. We very well could find support there. It's completely possible. And if the ETFs get denied, I think it's even likely that we find support there, because there are a lot of people, you guys, talking about the price going to 30K to 28K. Myself included. And the reason why, there's price targets down here, right? There's previous areas of resistance down here, right there at 31.5K on a closing basis, right there at 30K. There is significance down there. But there's also significance a little bit above. We don't even have to go all the way down to the 618. We could bounce off the 0.5. That's possible too. The more time we take, the more this green line is going to move up. We could bounce off the green line, which we found resistance on before, which if we go back in time, and this is on the weekly, I guess we've just respected it. Never mind. A little bit of resistance there. Maybe we haven't respected it as much on the weekly. On the daily, we respected a lot more. But the green line's the 123. I'll just show you guys what I mean real quick so you know that I'm not just like pulling out some random thing, right? I mean, it is kind of random, but it's not random. Resistance there, support, resistance, broke above it, found support, and then off to the races, right? By the way, this green line is all the way down here right now at about $34,500, and we find a lot more significance on the daily 123 than we do on the weekly. That's absolutely true. We can go back and find a lot more examples. Look at that. Tipped it to a T, literally. Found resistance right here. Tipped it right there. Broke above it a little bit here. Sure, you don't respect it all the time, but what indicator is respected 100% of the time? You know, that's just how it is. But I would expect that we'd come back down to here. As the days move on, this is going to climb up kind of at that trajectory if we were to assume it, right? And if we get like a flash crash down, that's right around $36,500, right around that 382. And I wouldn't be surprised if we found support around there. The main reason I wouldn't be surprised is this is a strong move. And generally with strong moves, you do find support at the 382. I got carried away with the ETF stuff. I'm more of a TA guy anyways, but I'm so convicted in the ETF getting denied that I got carried away with it, guys. But back to the main task at hand here. Not only is it the 382, but it's also this area where we found support before on a closing weekly basis. It literally lines up to it to a T right here, right? And we're in this kind of previous price range right now, right? If we put a box right there from low to high, we're in this. Take away the fibs, we're literally in this little consolidation phase before we move down. Now we're in the consolidation phase before we move up higher. Probably, maybe. Could we move lower? Absolutely. There is a lot of significance down here. You're not crazy or silly to assume that we could move all the way to 30K, nor would you be silly to assume that we could move below 30K. We absolutely could, because we found support down here too. There's significance throughout all this stuff. But I think that too many people would be expecting prices down here. I think that there is institutional interest, regardless if the ETFs get approved or denied, and that they would scoop this thing up in a heartbeat, man. And in fact, negative news in a bull market, I'll say it, I know it sounds crazy, but negative news in a bull market is not normally negative news. It's actually a good time to buy, because you get these like quick little flash dumps. China banned Bitcoin. India made Bitcoin illegal to mine, like whatever the news is going to come out. China bans Bitcoin like every year, you guys, and then it doesn't. It's just a negative news story. It dumps, and then it pumps as soon as the news comes out, right? It just scares people. It does a little shakeout, and then we move up. In fact, I wonder actually, from top to 36.5, is that where it was? That's a 20% drop. That is kind of tame. That is kind of small for Bitcoin. Yeah, it would be about a 20% drop. Generally speaking, we get like 30 to 40% drops in a bull market. A 30% drop to 40% drop, 31 would be right at the 618. So just, again, adding more validity to the idea that we could go lower. But I really wouldn't be surprised if we bounce off this 382. Now, we could bounce off it. All this to say, obviously, I think the price is going lower regardless of what happens. We could bounce off it, go up to the 236, and then proceed to go lower. I think that would be a telltale sign that the 61869 zone is at play. But let's see how we do, because I would very much expect to find support here. If we find resistance here at a previous area of support in itself, that would, this maneuver where you bounce off the 382, go up to the 236, and reject it, that is a common maneuver when you're working your way down to the 61869. So that, at that point, if we rejected this before we're even below the 382, I would probably, at that point, I'd make a video saying, I think we're going down here. But right now, I am focused on this level, about 36,300, 36,400, probably even a little bit below it. Just because the price goes below it, doesn't mean that it's not going to bounce there. It can wick below it, come back up, close the day, and then bounce. So it doesn't, and it's very common, in fact, to even go a little bit below your 382. Not to like respect it to a T, but sometimes you do respect it to a T. All that to say, guys, I feel like I had something that I was saying back with the ETFs, and I forgot it. So I went back to the TA, but oh yeah. It's not anything to do about the ETFs, actually. It's definitely about TAs. It's that, you know, on a weekly basis, we've been, back to what I was saying in the beginning, we've been overbought now for 10 weeks. We are pre-halving. Unlike the other two times where we've seen longer than 10 weeks, it was post-halving. We are not showing the same kind of price movements that we saw in those 18-week stints. I think that we are more than suitable to see some downside right now. ETFs be damned. News be damned. It's just normal price action. We have spent a decent amount of time up here, and just because we've on average spent about like 6 to 11 weeks in the overbought zone does not mean that we have to go down now. But that is the expectation. That is the statistics. We could stay in the overbought zone for 5 years. Like, you know, there's no rule that says we can't, but it's not very likely. It's not very common. And in the history of Bitcoin, which is a pretty long history, it's the longest history in crypto. This is kind of like an average expectation of how long we stay in the overbought zone. So it's right in that range. So I very much do think we're coming to an end of it. ETF news approved or denied, regardless of what our opinions are, and they are opinions. Don't let the media psych you out or convict you that your opinion is a fact. It's not a fact. The ETFs can get approved and you can be right, but it's still an opinion. It's still an opinion until it's a fact, proven right. It's still an opinion. Just like me thinking it's going to get denied is just an opinion. And whenever it gets proven right, I'll be happy that I was proven right if I'm proven right. But I'm not going to be like, I knew it, I freaking knew it, because nobody knows, man. No, we throw our opinions down, we make plays off of them, but like, you're going to be wrong at times, you're going to be right at times. There's no reason to act like you're some kind of psychic, because nobody is, man. If there were people that knew every single move, like they would be killing it, man. We would all know who to follow if that was the case. But everybody follows different people for that reason. You know, nobody's right 100% of the time. And you know, I'm getting off on some other stuff again, but really what I'm trying to say, guys, is I think we're moving down. Potentially, we're going to move down, regardless of the news. We're potentially going to move down to about 36,000, 36,400, somewhere in that range. And if we don't find support there, we're gonna go down to about 30K, 30 to 31K. And that's all I gotta say. This is a long, drawn out video basically saying that last little bit of information right there. That's the main meat of it. I think we're moving down. I think we are more than suitable to move down right now. And actually, I do want to compare this real quick to this week over here, right? As soon as we had a week, we were in this range. You guys remember this, right? Everybody was excited. We were going to go to 40K right on this week. As soon as we had this week that closed above this week, that was like the last of us going higher. We stalled and then we went down, okay? We stalled and then we went down. Really, it was this last high that we went up, and we just had our kind of last high here. If we look at the daily, it just resembles that a lot to me, because blow it up, right? On the weekly, it's a bigger time frame, but if we blow this up, we got our higher close on the daily. As soon as we got our higher close, as soon as we got our highest high of this range, that's when we started to go down, right? Going back here, as soon as we got our higher close, our highest price in this range, that's when we started to go down. And did we go all the way down here immediately? No, we meandered. We meandered for a second. With the news-driven event, I kind of would expect with all this hype around the ETF, I would expect that it's going to happen, that the move down is going to happen a lot faster than this did. It'll probably be just like this, right? But without all this in between. and maybe it won't be as extreme, but that's kind of my thoughts, man. That's my thoughts. So I don't really know what else to say. If you like the video, if it's worthy of a like, hit that like button. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. And if it's not worthy of a like, show me some reverse psychology. Hit that like button anyways. Teach me a lesson with reverse psychology, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good day. Bye-bye.